Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll be inshallah starting in a couple of minutes, so please hold on. Thank you for your patience. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We're having some technical issues. So today we'll do things a little differently. Instead of starting with the Quran section, we'll start off with a discussion, and then we'll begin with the Quran afterwards. So today's discussion is regarding what makes a house a home. So what makes your house feel like a home, essentially. Dr. Saleem, is there something you'd like to add to like start off the discussion, or should I start off with what I think what makes a house home?
Yes, actually, just a few initial inputs that I'd like to give, and observation that you see, a house is where everyone lives together. It could be a joint family system, it could be a single family system, and it could be of other formats as well. So that is the general concept that living together in one space, in one location, that is what constitutes a house. But what makes a house a home is something more than that. I mean, you're just not just living with each other. You are enjoying life. You are trying to adjust and accommodate, and at the same time, you are making your uh, a spouse, I would say, and let's confine ourselves to the fact that we're living as a single family unit in a house. So, what makes that house a home? Obviously, something that is going to happen and create that congeniality, that comfort between the spouses, and not only between the spouses, but between the spouses and their children. The children could be of younger age, they could be elderly, they could be in their teens. So this is the idea that you should participate by telling us that what do you think constitutes this homely environment in which a family not only lives but lives in comfort, in mutual harmony.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. If you would like to participate in the discussion, which we hope that all of you would participate in the discussion, you can do so by raising your hand or typing your thoughts in the chat. I will start off the discussion. I do not have that kind of family unit that Dr. Saleem has spoken of, but I will say what I think I would like for that family unit to be like in the
Mm,
future, inshallah. So for me,
mhm,
that would be a place of peace, a place where you come home and you don't feel like you are going to be, you know, put down or made to feel unloved or unaccepted. So, a place where you can go and whatever is on your mind, you can say whatever it is. If you've had a rough day, if you've had a, bad day, you're not going to be coming home to, hearing more nagging or hearing more complaints from your spouse or your children. So, a place where things feel calm and peaceful because that is what will make someone want to return back home to that place of love and acceptance. And even if you're going through a rough time, you know that this is the place where you can always return home to. And that's the kind of at least house that I've seen my parents have, and that's the kind of house that I would like to have in the future too, or home rather, I should say. So those are my
mhm.
2 cents. I would like to see participation. If Salman Aziz, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
Just adding a couple of points, sir. I think to keep a house as a home, I think the basic thing is that there'll be disagreements, there'll be conflicts, difference of opinion, different things. But I think if the that element of contempt in the background, in thoughts, is eliminated, then many of the confusion they multiply, they compound, they can be avoided. It can lead to, God forbid, breaking of a home. And I think it can be true for both the spouses, but
Mhm,
more true for the men that a man may like to be maybe unloved, it's okay, but not disrespected. So if this thing is kept in mind, I think the
mm.
house will continue to remain a home.
Okay. Okay, these are some good suggestions.
Thank you very much for that, Salman Aziz. I'd like to see more participants raising their hand or posting their thoughts. I would like to add that it should be a mixture of, at least I think it should be a mixture of both. You need love and respect. If you respect someone but you don't love them, you might do certain things
Mm,
that might be unkind, even though they're not quite disrespectful.
mm,
And vice versa. You can love someone and not show them any respect, and that could result in you insulting them in front of other people, and that that's
mhm.
not good. Uh, Salman Aziz, I saw you unmute yourself.
Just want to add a couple of
Yeah.
things. Little topics, yes. Just to add the comment that when I read Alipur Kaili Mumtaz Mufti, I just maybe in my early teens, I thought that the guy is mentally unstable, maybe a sexual predator or thing like that. But later on, some of my elders cleared the concept that unfortunately we generally speak truth about others. We don't speak truth about our own selves. Probably Mufti Saab did this thing in that novel that he had spoken truth about his own self. So regarding
Mhm,
these topics, these social topics that we have chosen today for discussion, it's I think very difficult for people to come out and share their personal experiences on that. So
Mm,
that's why probably the house is mute.
I see.
Right.
That's a good point. I guess we can add a little twist to the discussion and go
Mm,
forward with what do you think an ideal home should feel like? Not your own home. What do you think an ideal home
mm.
in your ideal world should feel like so that that house is no longer just a house, but a home to you? What brings you a homely feeling? Any takers?
Okay, and I think my opinion, a good guidance from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the same thing that whatever you want for others, you should, what you want for yourself, you must also give
Yeah,
to others. So this is
correct.
the basic point. I think if we keep this thing in mind, that what we want from our spouse, are we willing to give? Are we willing to sacrifice our time, our
Mm,
comfort, and many of our facilities we have? So if
mm.
that thing is kept in mind, I think that could be ideal home.
Right.
That's very fair.
Okay. So let me just add some things here, some points here that might be uh, worthwhile, especially because you see, all of us today, we are struggling in our homes, especially with the children. They move out in many countries as soon as they hit puberty or as soon as they enter adolescence. They feel that independence is something that they should have, and so the time between the children and the parents has is starting to become more and more confined to a certain pattern and certain age group. But I think this starts off with first the relationship between the spouses that has to be congenial, it has to be healthy. It doesn't mean that you cannot differ with one another. There are a couple of things that can really work between the spouses to make a house a home. So, first of all, is that a husband and a wife must always have a conflict resolution strategy, which means that whenever there's going to be a conflict, there is a laid out procedure between them that, okay, this is how we will follow. Maybe if I am emotionally charged, maybe if one of the spouses is angry or feels disappointed or dejected or doesn't feel like talking. So there's a whole bit of thing that happens between spouses. So if they have worked out a conflict resolution strategy amongst themselves, so they can, as soon as tempers, I mean, they die down and they become normal, yeah, you can shift to that strategy, because it would be in the form of a certain laid out procedure that, well, this is how we will be doing things. Maybe we'll be communicating for some time on messages, then we will be maybe trying to communicate our grievances, etc., etc. So there's a whole lot of things that can be discussed, and so that's not my topic at the moment. What I'm saying is that every house or every set of spouses, every husband and wife must have a conflict resolution strategy in which they should know that whenever there is a conflict that creates that bad taste, or in which tempers flare up, how do we need to resolve this? So that is one important thing. The second important thing is that both spouses should understand that they have come from different backgrounds, they have different habits, they have different styles of expressing themselves. So, the name of the game is accommodation. You have to accommodate your spouse in the sense that thinking that your spouse is also accommodating you. So, small things like whether the husband or the wife, because they're normally living in the same bedroom, they're in the same room, so conflicts as on and as small a thing as that whether the clothes should be ironed or not, or they should have the temperature of the room should be this or that, or maybe the TV should be on or off, or maybe the clothes that you take off should be hung immediately in the cupboard, or they should be left lying around. So you see, these are very small things, but because the spouses have come from different backgrounds, what happens is that there comes a clash. There becomes a clash between these conflicting habits, and very small things, they tend to flare up. So it is here that the spouses need to sit down and realize that every person has a background. Every person has come from a different background. You cannot change a person in a matter of days, or even maybe weeks or years. Because you see, you've spent almost 25 to 30 years of your life following a certain kind of pattern. You were living as a bachelor. Both of them were living as bachelors and spinsters in their own rooms, most probably, with that freedom that they had to do whatever they would like, their own private space, whether it's organized or disorganized. But now they're living in one room. And so it is here that, again, there are things that can be talked on. I mean, you can talk about certain things, how you can manage, but there are other things in which one spouse need to, they need to adjust to the other spouse's disposition, I would say. Disposition means that the way that you express yourself, the demeanor that you have, the nature that you have, which normally does not change. The third thing which makes that house a home is that you are able to grow from the help of your spouse, which means that your own potentials, which are latent, that need to be developed, but with the help of your spouse, your spouse facilitates your potentials and encourages you, and you are able to build upon the legacy that you have received from God as your latent potential, and you are able to express yourself. So this is the third important thing, that spouses, they have to facilitate each other's intellectual growth, mental growth, emotional growth, all types of developments that you that come to your mind. They have to facilitate, even if they disagree. The fourth thing in this regard is that spouses must realize uh, that marriage is basically a companionship. It's not a dictatorship. And what does that mean? It actually means that you must not impose yourselves on your spouse. For example, a wife should not dominate the husband, neither the husband should dominate the wife, in the sense that you would like the wife or the husband to adjust according to your own mold. So you would like the wife to behave like the way you would like her to behave. The husband would do that. The wife, vice versa, would like at times to dominate and set the pattern. So that is not right. So basically, it's a companionship. It's not a relationship in which you are dominating, or in which you are imposing yourself, or in which you are trying to change the person. You see, there is a certain flexibility, there is a certain buffer area in that flexibility in which a change can occur, but that change will occur if the other person is convinced that he or she needs to change. In the absence of that, all that you can do is just maybe make a case out of certain things, and give your opinion. And the final thing which helps in this matter, in which you can really make a house a home between the spouses, is that you're able to give regular feedback to one another, how things have happened. Because you see, a husband and wife, in spite of spending time together 24 hours maybe, it seldom is the situation in which, in calm circumstances, they're able to communicate that, well, this is how I feel about you. This is the area in which maybe you can improve. Because you see, there are certain mistakes which are being committed by either side without being realized. So you see, this what this feedback does is that it uh, helps you about certain things that you might not be noticing yourselves, and your spouse, who's like a mirror to you, would be telling you that, well, this is how things should proceed, and this is how I feel. And see, a lot of times, even if the change is not able to occur, even if that understanding is able to affect itself, that you are able to understand that how your spouse has certain things that might be bothering her, and you're responsible for that. So you see, even if you're not able to change, at times, out of respect for the spouse, for that particular time, or for a particular limited period of time, you are just trying to behave in a way that is something which is more conducive for your spouse to bear. So these are some things that can make a house a home between the husband and the wife. But then there is another thing which is very important, is that not only is this important between the husband and wife, but it is also important that the parents, the way they behave in an environment, it is very conducive to the adult children. Because you see, when the children are younger, they might not notice, and the parents also might not be that mindful of what is going on. But you see, when they enter adolescence, and which is very early, the onset of adolescence, which is mental adolescence primarily, it's the onset is very early these days. Even an 8-year-old child or a 9-year-old child is very aware and has an opinion. So here again, the most important thing is how to deal with younger children who have a different personality, who might be totally different in many ways than the parent himself or herself. You see, the father and the mother, often they don't realize that the children that are born to them, they are not only different from their own selves, but amongst themselves as well. So typically in a house, you'll have a brother or a sister, and they would be entirely different in their outlook, in their tastes, in their inclinations, in their habits. So it is here that you have to realize that you have to give that freedom of choice to your children, in which they can take decisions. You should involve them in major decisions of the house. At times, these are decisions, even like renovating a house or painting a house or things like, I mean, these are routine things. But you see, when you do them unilaterally, the other person who might be disturbed through a certain way, I mean, you can take the whole house into conference that, well, we are going through a certain period of renovations and we'd like your cooperation. Maybe we can defer it, but let's try to do it. So you see, discussing major decisions amongst not only the spouses, but between the elderly children as well, so that their comfort is not sacrificed. Similarly, another important thing is to know the art of correcting your children. You see, correction is something which comes naturally to parents, and they don't realize that they are repetitive, they are harsh, and they at times don't take into account the fact that a child has his or her own view about certain things, which might be different. For example, the clothes that they might wear, or the times on which they sleep, or the gadgets that they use. So it is here that the parents must realize that their role is basically like advising their children, like suggesting to the children what is best for them, and also at times making them commit mistakes, because there are certain things which their children are only going to learn if they make mistakes. Otherwise, they'll not learn. So children, I mean, parents become more ambitious. They don't allow the children to do anything which they think is wrong. But they must realize that there are certain things which can only be corrected if the freedom that is allowed to children can make them do those mistakes and then learn from those mistakes. And finally, very important, especially in Muslim societies, is that you must always learn that if you are to teach your children religion, and parents become very emotional about this, that they want their children to become regular prayer offerers or observant of all the duties and obligations. So always take this in a gradual way. Always try and tell your adult child, why do we need to observe certain practices? Why do we need to pray? Or why do we need to fast? Or what is the reason that we have to follow a certain decorum? So you see, instead of uttering sentences which are in the imperative, that do this or don't do that, always try to ascertain the wisdom behind the directives of religion. And I can tell you that if you are able to do that, it's going to be very easy for you to communicate and to win over your children, because you see, that wisdom is so touching. It is as if the person is going to say that, well, I feel the same. It's just the question of pulling the right strings, striking that chord, and letting them know that the wisdom of certain religious directives that you would like them to follow or to abstain from is this and this and this, and then let them make the choice. So that's another thing which is very important, and at times it creates a lot of hurdles, especially in Muslims or Muslim societies. I would say not Muslim societies, or Muslim homes, which basically are homes in non-Muslim countries. So typically, parents are Desi and children are born there, and they have a different outlook of things. And this is something which the parents are not able to realize. So, I mean, of course, a lot of things can be added to this, but my contention here is that this cohesion between the spouses, this is one thing, and then creating that space in which the child or the children are able to feel that they are being wanted, they are being encouraged, they are being facilitated, they are not always being condemned. And at the same time, they have this freedom to choose a life of their own. Because remember, at the end of the day, God, I mean, children are answerable when they grow up to God for themselves. The parents are not answerable. So typically, we see that parents become very ambitious and they feel that, well, because they might be answerable for their children, so they try to impose them. And this goes as far as to determine the careers of their children. So they'll typically dictate that what a child must do as a profession. And of course, in the choice of a spouse, they'll interfere and they'll not let their child choose a spouse. I know this is a variation that is not always the same in different societies, but by and large, talking about Desi parents, I do see that enforcement on their part in which they would give a verdict that, well, we don't agree to what you are trying to do, or your marriage or your spouse is someone that we don't like, and hence will not participate, or etc. Similarly, if you are starting a certain job, this could be something which again could be a point of conflict. So the parents must realize that as an adult child, every person has this liberty to choose a life of his or her liking. And that person, not the parent, will be answerable for that. So if this is something that the parent realizes, then you see that friction that I find to be very rampant these days amongst Muslims in non-Muslim societies, it may tend to get reduced.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Ammar Rasul, please go ahead.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, I had this question, and I have had this impression about Islam's approach towards married couples or marriage, that if there is a child involved and the husband and wife are now mother and father, then Islam makes the keeping of the bonds very, very important, and Islam would like to see the husband and wife to try and stay together unless and until there was a very extreme reason. Anything other than a very, very extreme reason, Islam would ideally want the parents to stay together, the husband and wife to stay
Right.
together because they have a child. But
Mhm.
if there is no child yet,
Mhm.
then I always had that feeling, and I do not know if that feeling is correct or not. And this is my question actually. I always had this feeling that Quran or Islam has a very modern approach towards divorce, because obviously it does not allow live-in relationships before marriage, where a man and a woman can truly find out the
Mhm.
nature of the other person. So once you are married, that's the first time that you are going to find out if there are any problems you have with the other person's hygiene habits or bathroom habits
Mhm.
or eating habits, or if the other
Mhm.
person is generally speaking irritating, or they get
Mhm.
angry very quickly, or if they are lazy, or if there are any physical or sexual problems that the couple might have or might be having. In these
Mhm.
circumstances where there is no child, the religion, our religion, has a very modern approach, and it's very open-minded that you can get a divorce very quickly if there are any of these reasons that you might be facing.
Mhm.
My question is, am I correct in these assumptions?
You see, in this regard, we have to understand that religion gives you a broad guidance, and that is that whether you have children or you don't have children, the thing is that you have to understand that the essence of marriage is something that most people miss because a lack of training, a lack of understanding of the concept of what exactly is meant by a couple to coming together as a married couple. So you see, marriage has become more of a institution in which the reality is often overlooked, and people romanticize marriage a lot. They feel that, well, this is how an ideal wife should be, and this is how an ideal husband should be. And we don't find ideal wives or husband in this world, and they don't realize that this idealism is something that they should look for in the hereafter. In this world, you can only have a working relationship between the spouses. And if that is something that you're able to achieve, then that is something which is the starting point. You have done your job. And then, of course, you can build upon that working relationship as much as possible. But if even if that is not available and you are just at the bare minimum in which you have that working relationship, then it is better to pull along, because you see, you have to realize that whether you're living with one spouse or the other, even if you get a divorce and maybe think of marrying again, remember, no one is perfect. So the spouses, even if they don't have children, of course, the difference only is one, and that is that the children become a deterrent in divorce. That's a fact. But at times it's something which is good, and at times it is something which is not good, because you see, the spouse might need that break in which one of the spouses would like to just quit. But because of the fact that the children are there, so there is a compromise that might come into being, which might affect the mental health of one of the spouses. So it can work both ways. So that is why I feel that instead of thinking whether we should have this arrangement, whether we are having children or not, the more important thing is to give this a good education and grooming to every adult child about the institution of marriage, about what exactly marriage means, about how you can make a marriage work, and about the fact that you'll never find an ideal wife in this world. This is just an ideal that you can think of or read in books or maybe watch movies about them. But real life is so different that you have to work towards a goal that could be achievable, and that is having that working relationship. And whatever ideal that you have, just defer it for the next world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Should we proceed on to the Quran?
Yes, so yes, we are just going to proceed to the Quran, and because of the fact that there is this problem with the screen display, the Quranic part that we are going to study today is basically something that we all have in our hearts. So I'll just go through it, and that is Surah Fatiha. So the Quranic part of today's Islam study circle is Surah Fatiha, which is the first surah of the Quran. It was the first surah that was revealed also, and we all know that although there is a difference of opinion, but the topic of the Quran, the way the surah has been revealed, it clearly tells us that this is in fact the first revelation given to the Prophet, and it is something that in the very first place gives you that basis of connecting to God. If you would like to connect to God, if you would like to connect to God, you know what? The best thing that can happen is that you connect to God through the blessings that you enjoy from Him. And these could be like your own eyes, your five faculties, the fact you have food to eat and you have clothes to wear and you have a shelter, you have access to education and medical facilities. So you see, if you start counting your favors, then the first thing that should come to your lips is that, God, I really am grateful to you. So you see, that is the very first word of Surah Fatiha. It says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Normally, this verse is translated as all praise to God who is the Lord of the worlds. So that is not a very accurate translation. The word alhamd, the way it is used here, actually means gratitude. It's like your expression of saying thank you to God. Or in more precise words, the word Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, which is the first verse of Surah Fatiha, actually tells us that, we acknowledge God through the depth of our heart, that God, you have done so much. It's just that I have not been able to fully gauge and realize your blessings. But the fact is, I owe all gratitude to you. You are the Lord of the worlds. You have given me so much that I must not brood on what I don't have. I must thank you for what I have, because what I have outnumbers what I don't have. So you see, the very first verse of Surah Fatiha is that is that motivation and is that connection that should be established in the very first instance between a person and his creator, and that is the relationship of thanksgiving, the relationship of gratitude, the relationship of acknowledgement that there is someone who's looking after me. And that is why when I start off my prayer, the first words that I say is Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and then of course we pronounce his two great attributes, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So clearly you can see, even if you don't know Arabic, that the word Rahim is common to Ar-Rahman and Rahim. So that it's like the root word is there for both, it's the same. So the difference between Rahman and Rahim is that Rahman means that the mercy of God is like a gushing fountain. It's coming out and it's like giving you so much, and it's like drenching you with His mercy. Marahim means that whatever that mercy is, it's not going to die away. It's not going to finish off. It's going to remain forever. So that is why the word Rahim is generally translated as ever merciful, that you're always merciful. So the idea is that when someone has this, in this world, whenever we have that enthusiasm, whenever we have a gushing phenomena, it often dies away very easily. Very soon. For example, if the fountain is producing gushing water, we do have this feeling that, well, one day it's going to finish because it's coming out in such a large proportion that it's bound to finish. So it is here that the Almighty is giving us this assurance that not only is that mercy in the form of a gushing fountain, it's always something that's not going to die away. He's ever merciful. He's most merciful, which means that mercy is gushing out, and that is going to remain forever. So Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, they are further introduction to God. So you see, Surah Fatiha is like connecting us to God first through our gratitude that we have for Him, and then through the feeling at how He is merciful to us and how He is going to remain merciful to us throughout our lives. And then we have Malik Yawmiddin, that He's the master of the day of judgment, telling us that it's the day of judgment in which His justice is going to materialize in its perfect form. Because you see, in this world, we can never achieve perfect justice. All that we can achieve is possible justice, and that too on many occasions eludes us. I mean, we might not have that possible justice because of maybe circumstantial evidence being tampered, maybe a judge making a mistake, maybe things not being in order, in spite of all sincerity. But you see, in the hereafter, God says that everything will be set right, because not only people will be rewarded or punished according to what they did outwardly, even their intentions will be taken into account. So God is going to give that justice, that super perfect ring, when even the intentions which no one knew in this world, even they will be examined. So you see, clearly the word Malik Yawmiddin gives you this feeling that God is the master of the day of judgment, in the sense that everything that can be called as perfect justice will manifest itself. So you see the first three verses, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin, they are like introduction to God and His attributes. And then in the fourth verse, it is the first time, if you look at the translation, that we address God. And what do we say? Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. In the first three verses, we have not yet addressed God. We have not just said something to Him. We have said something in an indirect way, that all gratitude be to God. He is the most gracious, and He is the most merciful, and He's ever merciful. He's the master of the day of judgment. So you see, all these are in the third person. But in the fourth verse, it's like a direct communication, a direct address. What do we say? Iyyaka na'budu. God, only you we worship. Wa iyyaka nasta'in, and only your help do we seek. So now my address is like talking to God. The first three verses were statements that I acknowledge, or I should acknowledge. In the fourth verse, I connect to God by addressing Him and saying that, God, since these are facts, so therefore I only worship you. And remember that this worship that Surah Fatiha is talking about is not just the rituals of worship. It's something that encompasses our whole being. It includes obedience, it includes compliance, and of course, it includes our worship rituals as well. So, Iyaka na'budu would mean that God, I'm going to connect you to you through these worship rituals, and I'm going to be obedient and compliant to you as well. So, and then Iyaka nasta'in, that I'm not going to rely on anyone's help. I'm going to rely only on your help, because you are the master of the day of judgment. You are the most gracious. You are the most merciful. You are the all powerful. So I don't need anyone's help if I have your help. So towards you, I'm going to turn to for my help. So Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. And then this is a step forward when I say Ihdina siratal mustaqim, that God guide us on the straight path. We need that guidance. We need your help. We need your detailed guidance, because you see, the guidance that we have when we are born, that's what we call innate guidance, which means guidance that has been bestowed upon us by birth. So we have the knowledge of good and evil, but we would like to know even more. So, for example, we would like to know how to connect to God through those worship rituals. That what are those worship rituals? How are those optimally obtained and acted upon? And similarly, the fact that if I live in a collectivity, what should be the rules that relate to my collectivity, to my public life, including the economics, the politics, the social affair, all these things. So that is why I say Ihdina siratal mustaqim, that God guide us to the straight path. And then I say siratal lazina an'amta alayhim, you guide us to the path of those people on which you have shown your favor. And obviously, this refers to people who are guided by God, who have been guided by God in the past, especially the prophets of God and their companions. That is my positive requirement and my positive ask from God. And then I have those negative sentences which says, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. I would like to have the guidance of the straight path, that path which is the path of the rightly guided, on whom you have shown your favor, anamta alayhim, but not of those people who are maghzoob. So this is a term in the Quran specifically spoken for the Jews who had earned the wrath of God because of their deliberate denial of a messenger of God. So they had denied Jesus, and then later on they had denied Prophet Muhammad at the same time. So they became the recipients of God's anger and wrath, and that is why, if you look at the Quran, al-Maghzub are basically those Jews who had intentionally denied those messengers of God. And then the last thing is وَلَضَّالِينَ, not people who have gone astray. And if you look at this usage in the Quran, you'll find that basically the Christians are being talked about here, because through the concepts of Trinity, through the concepts of ascribing uh, Jesus to be the Son of God, etc., they had gone far, far astray. And so it is like in the middle that Muslims are asking that, well, we would not like to earn the wrath of God the way the Jews did, and we'd not like to go astray the way the Christians did. We would like some fresh guidance from you. It is like the guidance a request made by a person who's standing at the crossroads, right in the time of the Prophet himself, who had the Torah and the Injil right in front of him, but obviously they had been tampered with, and at the same time, the Prophet himself needed this straight line guidance, because, as I said, they were not available. The original guidance, the previous guidance, it was not available in its original shape. So it was here like the Prophet standing and asking for that fresh guidance. And then this whole prayer, viewers, it became part of our salat. And in every rakat, we offer this salat. In every rakat, we recite this prayer, because it's such a beautiful prayer. It's such a beautiful supplication that it reminds us of these basic teachings in a very, very precise way. And let me also tell you that if you read the Bible, you'll find the Surah Fatiha that was for the Jews and for the Christians in their own times mentioned in their scriptures. So something very similar to Surah Fatiha is found in the Old Testament or in the Torah for the Jews, and something very similar, which is called the Lord's Prayer. Many of you might even know it in the Gospels as well. So that shows that in their own times, when they were be praying to God, just as Surah Fatiha was made the part of our Salah, it was these parts that must have been made the parts of their own Salah, which we know was offered by them the way we offer the prayer. It's not something that the Prophet started praying. This prayer was an age-old institution, started very earlier on, since the time of Adam. So every prophet of God was reciting something or the other in the prayer. And the Surah Fatiha of Torah and the Surah Fatiha of Injil, even today, they have been demarcated. And even the Psalms, which is the Zabur, the scripture revealed to Prophet David or Dawud, as the Quran says, has also been demarcated. Such is the importance of the Surah Fatiha. So this is a very brief introduction to Surah Fatiha. Viewers, I'll then talk to you about a hadith, as I know, as I've just told you, that at the moment our display is not available. So I'm just going to give you this hadith that is a very important one. And it tells us that the words are that a person who is strong is not the one who wrestles with the other person and defeats him in a wrestling match, but a person is a strong person, a really strong person who is able to yamliku nafsahu indal ghazab, who is able to control himself or herself when he or she is angry. So a real strong person is not someone who's physically strong. So these are the words ascribed to Prophet Muhammad. A real strong person is not a person who is defeating a person through his physical strength, but real physical strength or real mental strength is one in which a person is able to control his temper and anger. And I think this is something very true. All of us, we pass through these intense emotions. We get angry, we get frustrated, we get flared up. And in those moments, something really drastic can happen. We can abuse people, we can hit people. Even we know that many carnages and killings and murders have taken place in this flared up situation. So such is the importance that we control ourselves, that we are able to control our anger. And the Prophet has said that this is what defines a person's strength. If you would like to be a strong person, then control your anger, because anger, when it is expressed in the wrong instance, it's a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of strength. People think that, well, if I'm not angry, I'm not going to express my anger. It's maybe a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it's a sign of strength. On the contrary, it's a sign of weakness, because now you are tending to just just blurt out your emotions and vent out your emotions, and then make other people the target of those emotions. So I think this is a very wise saying attributed to Prophet Muhammad. In our third segment, we normally study a portion of the Bible. So the Bible verse that I'd like to present today is something that is found both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, it's called Shema, and in the New Testament, Jesus has referred to it. And the words are so beautiful. It says that love your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Love your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your might. So this is the teaching that we find of from Moses and Jesus, and of course, this is something that Prophet Muhammad as well has taught. And obviously, the scriptures that are ascribed to all these three prophets of God, they also contain this very fundamental, very fundamental guidance that love God with all your might, with all your soul, and with all your strength. So we've just talked about this, that loving God is like, I mean, the only love that we can maybe compare it to, although it's something very ordinary, something very rudimentary, something very minuscule, is the love of your mother, maybe, or your parents, that you love them spontaneously. You love them, and you don't need to be taught to love them, isn't it? You love your parents spontaneously. It's like a phenomena that's uncontrollable. It's there by instinct. Why? Because you see your parents, what they have done for you. You can visualize them, you can observe them. However, in the case of God, although He is even responsible for giving you these parents and so many other numerous blessings, but because He's behind a curtain, because He's not observable to us, because we don't see Him, so that is something that at times makes us elusive of His reminders and of His presence. We tend to just forget Him, we become oblivious. So, this is what prophets of God do. And this is what the Quran has done. This is what the Old Testament has done. The New Testament has done. That you love your God with all your might and with all your strength and with all your soul. That you have to understand that the God that you have, the conception of God that you have in your own self, is a God that is a loving God. He never ever intends evil or bad for you. Even if you're passing through trying circumstances, the purpose of God is not to punish you in the sense that He would like to put you in some spot of bother. The purpose is to make you realize that these trials and tests are meant to test you. They are meant to test your mettle. They are meant to make you realize that this is a chance for you to come closer to God. This is a chance to become stronger than before. This is a chance to make us at times do some soul searching, that I might be doing something wrong, as a result of which I'm suffering. So you see, these are all the experiences and benefits even of those trials and tests, and so on and so forth. So God is love all over. It's love written all over Him. And the Quran expresses this by saying that Bahuwal Ghafurul Wadud. So He's not only merciful, He's Wadud, which means that He loves His creation. His love personified. It's embedded in Him. And if there ever is something that you call His anger and His wrath, it's like that of a parent. I mean, in a very small sense, that because parents, what do? They get angry not because it's their own personal rage or interest, but because children do something that's going to harm them. So their anger is because they think that when a child is doing something, uh, that child is going to harm himself, isn't that? So that anger is not for a personal score, or maybe for some personal vengeance, or for some personal feeling. It's for the betterment of the child. Similarly, God is angry with us not for any personal vengeance or something that you can ascribe to Him, but because we are doing something that's going to be costly for our own selves. So His anger is again for our own benefit. So if you look at His love in this way, you'll find that He is his anger is also, it springs from that intense love. It springs from that intense love, that why are we doing things that are harming us? And that is what makes Him angry, and that is what precisely makes our parents angry. So just a small comparison to make us gauge the fact how important it is to realize that we have to love God with all our might, with all our soul, and with all our strength. So with this, we complete our all four segments, and the time in which we still have, maybe we can have some general questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. If you have any questions to ask, please raise your hand or type them in the chat below. If you'd like to remain anonymous, you can send them directly to me in the chat. And again, it doesn't have to be topic specific to anything we talked about today. It can be a general question. Akram Batisa, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum
Sir, if you intended to pay 4 rakats and you realize that you paid only 3 after you after salam, then what should you should repeat it or should we add one
No,
or
you
more?
should. You just pray one more rakat and then say salam. You stand up and pray one rakat the way you do. Sit down in your tahiyyat and then just say salam. So just make up for the missed rakat and also do sajda sahab.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Noshad Shafkat, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Could you just explain the Sajda Sahab a little in detail, sir, to make things clear?
So sajda sahab is not anything different from the normal sajda or prostration that we do. We just do it twice, and we can utter anything that relates to expressing thanksgiving to God or our own forgiveness or expressing any desire. So that is it's what it's all about. So you just need to do repeat the prostration that you normally do in the prayer. There's no difference between that prostration and the ones that you do as sajda sahab. Both are 2 in number.
Procedure, sir. The procedure how is to be done.
So there's no defined procedure. You see, whenever you make a mistake, if you are praying in congregation, then the imam, if he's going to make a mistake, you just need to follow him. If you're alone, then it depends where you remembered your mistake. If you remembered it within the prayer, so before saying salam, you can just do 2 sajdas and then they say salam. And if you have remembered your mistake after you have said salam, you can just do the sajda once again on a prayer mat and then say salam.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Akram Batisa, please go ahead.
Yes, another question I have is um, like I heard you told us once that if you say you intended to say tahajjud, but you she paid 3 rakats in the after Isha, and you get up for tahajjud and I go again do odd rakat. I mean not 3 rakats, odd rakat. But somebody else said no, there cannot be 2 odd rakats in one day. So what's the
No, so what I suggested was that you're not doing 2 odd rakats, you're just repeating the previous prayer. So, like for example, if you said your witr prayer before going to bed,
yeah.
so it's like you've already offered your tahajjud prayer with the Isha prayer. Now there is another situation in which you get up for the tahajjud. You already offered the tahajjud prayer, and now you have the chance and a blessing that you have woken up at the time that was the actual time. So what should we do at this instance? So people have suggested different things. To me, the best thing is that because you were given the opportunity to offer the tahajjud prayer at its actual time, but you have already done it before. So you're just going to repeat what you have already done before. You're not doing it afresh. You're not doing it. I mean, You're not doing it in a new way. You're just re-offering it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can I ask another question, sir?
Go ahead.
Yes, please.
About Sajda Sahab.
Mm-hmm.
I have been told that you do Sajda Sahab, you miss ruku or Sajda or Rakat. But what if you um, misread something? Like suppose, see, I'm an old man, I forget things. I got up the other day. I got up from one sajda and two sajdas, and I started
Mm-hmm.
saying Atahiyat instead of Surah Fatiha again. Then I repeated the Surah
Mm-hmm.
Fatiha after when I realized I just stopped and say Surah Fatiha and Quran, part of Quran. And so is that
Well,
okay?
that is fine. If we just as soon as you realize your mistake, if you're able to make it up, that is the best thing that you should do. And then, of course, the other thing is that you can do your sajda sahab. So remember, sajda sahab is something that you do in lieu of any error that you make. whether you are able to make up that error or not. So you see, if you're able to make up that error, that you realize if you forgot something and you just said that, so whether you are able to make up that error or not, sajda sahab needs to be done nevertheless. So whenever you are not able to make up whatever you have done, I mean, it's something that you cannot actually rectify. Only sajda sahab is enough. But whenever you are able to rectify something, then you rectify that and do sajda sahab.
Okay, so it's not true that only you do said that's how when you miss a sajda or ku or rakat, right? Any mistake, any
I
other.
mean, it depends on the nature of mistake. I mean, if you have missed a rakat, for example, you'll rectify that mistake by praying that extra rakat. So it all depends on the nature of the mistake. But in general, whenever you are able to rectify and then do sajda sahab. When
Okay.
you're not able to rectify, then just do sajda sahab.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. I had a question regarding the working relationship part that you were talking about. So, am I right in understanding is when you're looking to someone as a partner, the idea is that you are accepting them for who they are in the moment and not the ideal that you wish them to be, and then that's the working relationship that you're talking about?
Right, that is correct. That you accept the person as he or she is, and not try to change that person, not try to make that person, uh, I mean, come in your own comfort. I mean, come out of their comfort zone and into your comfort zone, or maybe make them realize that you need to change yourself. And just think that at times your spouse might not be able to fully furnish or fulfill your emotional needs. Sometimes it's not even possible that psychological needs might be met. Sometimes it's not possible that friendship needs might be met. You see, there could be different deficiencies or shortcomings that relationship actually espouses. And the you see, the thing that have to realize is that this is true for any relationship. I mean, for example, this romantic idea that people get, that, well, if I was not with him or with her, and if I had a different spouse, this would not be the situation that I'm going through. We don't realize that if maybe yes, we would not have been in the same situation, but then they would have been in another different situation, because every person has some shortcomings or flaws. So a different person would have some different shortcomings. So you see, because of the fact that we are not ideal or we are not perfect ourselves, so therefore the relationship can never be perfect. It has to be something that's based on practicality, and that is what I call working relationship. Since human beings are imperfect, the relationship can never be perfect. That is what is called, I mean, the understanding of this is called the conception that now this is what our marriage is all about. My spouse is imperfect, so am I. So therefore, now it's a question of how we deal with two types or two gateways of imperfections.
So, in that sense, do you have any tips for before you even get married? What kind of questions
Oh
do you
yes.
ask? Because
Well, that is a whole like a whole workshop, or maybe it's like a whole topic that needs to be covered. A lot of things they have to be understood. Some of them I mentioned earlier on. There are some others as well, that you have to understand the concept of marriage. You have to understand that, again, I'll repeat the same thing, that you must give away the idealism that people at young age have. They think that marriage is something that is going to fulfill all their wants and their wishes and desires. It's like a utopia that they think of. But the fact is that this is not true, because I just said all of us, we have our own imperfections. So it's basically a question of how do you deal with your spouse's imperfections that makes a marriage perfect. So it's like being a perfect person in in trying to understand the imperfections of your spouse and dealing with them, and at the same time admitting that I have also my own imperfections with which my spouse is dealing.
thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Do we have any more questions to take in the last maybe 2 more minutes or so? If not, we can end the session here. Seems to be that that's about it. Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem, for today's session, and thank you to all the participants for asking questions and participating. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow during textual study of the Quran. Please take care, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.